Hi everyone, Jasmine O'Reilly here and Thomas Brook from LVL UP Consulting. And we're here to share a little bit about our experience and our intel into how to do a project health check. So Tom, I'll forward you in a minute because you've developed the LVL UP way of doing a project health check. But to set us on this journey, let's talk a little bit about what a project health check actually is. Now, you may have come across this term before and in its exact form, but there are some other ways that this is described. It could be an assurance review or a gateway review or some sort of project governance gating that might happen. But the whole intention of a project health check is, well, it's exactly as it sounds to how would you describe it?
It's just a way to look at your project, see where it's at, see what's working, see if it's on track at various points along the project life cycle.
Nice. Very articulate, much better than what I would have said. But this is a really important thing to do because if you don't already know this scary statistic, which spooks me every time I see it, but 70% of projects that start do not make it to the end or they fail. And that's a waste of time, of budget, of resources. And, just like you would take your car to the mechanic or go to the dentist for a checkup, a project health check can be a really proactive and preventative thing that you can do to make sure you don't become one of those statistics. And it's something we're passionate about.
Yeah, and I think that proactive word is really helpful because it stops you getting to the end of the project, having a bit of a mess and not being able to finish. It gives you time to turn it around and get back on track and make sure you're getting all your benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are investing in a health check, it doesn't have to be something you do once. We work with a lot of very long, complex projects, and sometimes our health checks are really good. It can even be a very light exercise that you do periodically throughout the life cycle to make sure you are still realizing benefits, you're doing things in the right way, you've got the right resources. So that's what a health check is. As I mentioned, it's called lots of different titles, and often you will bring in an external party to help you with it. That just helps you have a fresh perspective, have someone else who's not involved in it see those blind spots that you might be missing. So it's worth the investment, and there are lots of organizations out there that can help you. There isn't a one-size-fits-all way of doing this. So we're going to tell you a little bit about the way we do it at LVL UP, and we've also developed a bit of a guide that people could potentially look at just as maybe even thought starters for how they can do their own project health checks, because we're passionate about these projects not failing. So if we can help set you in the right direction, that's what we're here to do. So Tom, you were the brain power behind the LVL UP version of a project health check. How did you develop it? And please take me into all of the sections.
Basically, the idea was to not go and look at a project in the same way that it was developed. If we're just looking through the same window, you're going to see the same view.
Yes.
So first thing you could do is just get a different perspective, get someone external in. They're going to have a slightly different perspective, but if you're still looking through the same window, again, still the same view, you'll just have a different take on it. So what we wanted to do was try and look at it from a slightly different angle and not do it as a checklist of like, here's everything that a project has. There's lots of that out there. And even if all of those technical things are done right, doesn't mean your project's not gonna have some issues.
Oh, I like that. Just because you tick a box doesn't mean you're going to have a successful project.
Quite, yes.
Okay, so what are the indicators of a successful project, which I'm assuming you've brought to life in your health check?
A little bit, yeah. So we wanted to look at it at, we can go into detail and making sure you have all of the right bits of project governance and the monitoring and controlling and all those bits, but it's where they fit in sort of bigger trends and patterns that helps you spot some of the bigger problems. So we wanted to look at it from the conception of a project, and is everything set up right? Do you have that vision to start with of what a project should be? So then you've got a good foundation to build everything on. But then is all your planning done well? Hey, are you setting that vision up for success from there and putting everything in place? And then throughout execution, looking at it from a bit of a higher level and making sure you're kind of ticking all the big boxes, not just the little pieces.
Very nice. So in terms of the health check that we've developed and that is part of the guide that people might want to access, there are, is it 3 main sections?
3 main sections?
Yes. So conception, planning, execution.
Yep.
Is that right? with lots of questions underneath.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're asking questions that'll help us challenge our assumptions more than just ticking boxes, because we can get into a place with a project where you're in the weeds and you feel like you know everything, but the context may have changed. Things aren't the same as when you started, and
Yes.
you may have forgotten more about your project than you now know. And some of those things might be relevant again. So just bringing it back to where it started and questioning assumptions to make sure that we're making good decisions.
I like it. And I'm sure lots of people watching this are very timeful, very busy. And so an investment of time in a health check, is this something that takes a lot of time, or can it be done quite quickly?
It can be done quite quickly. Without going into too much detail on examining reviewing the documentation, everything, you could run through this in half an hour to an hour and get some really good insights on, did you start your project well? Is the execution going well? Are we looking at, are you having problems with your people, or are the processes not right, or is the technology not right? And breaking it into sort of those larger systems and patterns, and it can be really good for highlighting particularly where you've gone wrong. Because again, if you've got all your technical bits right and your project management's really tight, but you're not caring about the people, or your processes aren't context dependent and fit for purpose, then you may run into troubles there. Even though everything else is, those boxes are ticked. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to go well.
Absolutely. But then also, they will reveal probably some things that need some attention, which is great, because if you're a project sponsor or a PMO manager and you're conducting a health check, that tells you where to focus, which is great. But what I also like, and sometimes people forget, is there are some good news stories that we're not talking about in a project. And this is really important when you start talking about change management and communications and who stakeholders are. And it's almost equally as important to know what's going well and do more of it and talk about it with more stakeholders. And this process also reveals that, doesn't it?
Yeah, we use a red, amber, green traffic light system to assess all of these. So it just gives you a really nice visual on where things are winning. Like if you run through and you get a whole bunch of greens, that's great.
Yeah, tell your sponsors.
Yeah, we should celebrate that. If you get some ambers, cool, we got some issues to look at. And if there's reds, then they're sort of those really urgent places that you can put your attention now and really turn things around.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so we know what a health check is. We know so what, why people should do it. What's the now what? They've done the health check. They may have got greens. They may have got a mix of colours. They're looking at this outcome going, what do I do next? What can you do with a health check once you've done it?
It helps give you somewhere to direct the resources and your attention.
Awesome.
So, if you're just missing a few bits of governance, that's an easy tick. Get an actions log going. Happy days. If it's some bigger problems and especially people problems, then you might want to look at investing a bit more in change management and the transition of that.
Beautiful. Getting in more resources maybe for a point of time in your project. My favorite topic is benefits realization. So are you tracking your benefits? Did you set benefits at the start? This aligns to the vision. And are you delivering on those? And if not, do you need to recalibrate and shift gears a little bit? That's a really brave thing to do in a project, but it's honestly better to do it now than at the very end when you're not really realizing any benefits at all. So there's lots of tangible next steps that come from a health check, or nothing, but at least you're equipped with that knowledge and that power, and know maybe even where to direct your questioning if you are a sponsor or a PMO to your project teams. So overall, Tom, I know you've created our health check, but would you say it is definitely a worthwhile investment of time?
I think so. If you run through, do it, it's all green, then happy days. If it helps you question some assumptions, if it points out that maybe the project itself wasn't that useful or strategically coherent to start with.
All the world has changed.
All the world has changed since it started. Or you're having some, systems levels problems with the people, the processes, or the technology, then it gives you a bit of a steer on where to go. And we have the benefit of sort of going into a lot of different organizations and sort of seeing these problems and how they manifest, and having ways of helping fix them and turning projects around and making sure we're not part of that 70% that do fail.
Absolutely. And just going back to the analogies, because I love an analogy, do that preventative work now so that you don't have a car that breaks down on the highway or a tooth that needs to be extracted. Get in early and, everyone's happy. Thank you for sharing that, Tom. One last thing before you go. If you've made it to the end of this video, congratulations. But there's lots of things out there, as we said. There are checklist tools. There's a plethora of resources on the internet, and we definitely encourage you to have a look at them. But if you're a little bit curious as to, how do these level up guys do it? Why should somebody take a look at, maybe having a look at our guide or maybe even working with us to do a health check?
I think our health check is a good way of just looking through a different window. So you're going to get a completely different perspective, even if you're running it along your own project. So if you're a project manager, you're in the weeds, things aren't going right, you don't know how to look at things. This will help you ask some questions to view it in a different way and question those assumptions that you've been working with.
Absolutely. Plus, you get the level up special sauce of that people first mindset as well, where, project management is people management. So you'll really see that come to the forefront with our health check. Thank you, Tom. Hopefully we get to more people doing some health checks or, incentivized to do so. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.